Hey guys, it is another episode of the Believe in Padres Prospects podcast on the Believe Podcast Network.
San Diego's #1 sports podcast network.
Did you actually read that, Wade, or do you have it memorized?
Record, Ryan, record.
Thanks. So on today's show, Wade was not included in our interview, but we did an interview with Ray Butler from Prospects 365. So we're talking with him about the draft and the state of baseball during the pandemic. By the way, pandemic has been used more, the most infrequently used word that's being used a ton right now in the power rankings. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, when have you ever used pandemic before? I feel like maybe it's come up in a couple South Park episodes.
Now it's like a daily word. I use it several times per day.
I can't wait for the South Park episode on this pandemic.
When are they due to come out with new episodes? Are they between seasons right now?
I think, but I mean, everything's for sure getting pushed back. Like, they can't all... I guess South Park, you could technically, like, write via Zoom. You don't all have to be at the same place.
Yeah, level of difficulty on that's pretty high. I don't know how they could do it. Even for those guys, it seems tough. We got that interview with Ray Butler. And in the meantime, we've got Wade here. So Wade... asked Wade what he wanted to talk about. Wade, what is your big take on the new divisional realignment? That's the thing that we needed to talk about most today. So the pandemic.
First they listened to my ideas, so they must be listening to the podcast. Why should we only do this in Arizona? Like, we should do this in Florida too. And what do you think? Next week comes up.
I don't think that's what happened at all.
They're listening to Wade. Okay, Government's always listening, Ryan.
So what was your big idea that they listened to?
That why don't we just divide it Florida and Arizona? And they did that.
I'm pretty sure that was already included in the idea.
No, the first idea was like, we're going to do all of this at Diamondback Stadium.
Which is, we agree that wouldn't make any sense at all.
Right. Like, you got to use the spring training facilities.
Yeah. And did they mention if they're doing it just during the first couple of months, or is it going to go into the summer?
I didn't read that far into it.
I don't think they know yet.
But yeah, I mean, I think all of this is still up in the air. So they're just like, we got to get some games in. Like, let's try this out.
So they for some reason they broke the league up into divisions still. I don't know why they're doing that. If they're putting all the Cactus Leagues team together and all the Grapefruit League teams together, why don't you just have one big league and you play a balanced schedule? I've been preaching balanced schedule for a very long time. I want that in the National League. Travel is not what it used to be, and it's much easier than it was when baseball started. There was a reason they did divisions, and it's because they had to take the train fucking everywhere. But now, for some reason, the Padres don't play the Angels ever, even though they're up the road about an hour and a half. I think it's really dumb that we still do divisions, and especially now, we have a great opportunity to just throw all the Cactus League guys into one league. You play a balanced schedule against the other 14 teams, and you take the top teams to the playoffs. Why are we still doing divisions?
I mean, it's got to be like something about old traditions, and like, you can't just change it overnight like that.
We're changing everything overnight. We're coming up with all new divisions. No one's playing in their home ballpark. They're all playing in one central city in Phoenix. Tradition's out the window.
Yeah, but I mean, you're still like, eventually when it all comes back, having playoffs, and like, you win your division, you go to the playoffs, then there's 2 wild card spots still. Like, so you can still technically have the real playoffs. It's just same teams. It's just a little different lining. It's
dumb. You just take the 6 best teams or the 5 best teams and then call it a day. It's the most fair, since travel's not an issue. Anyway, I guess I'm alone on that between you and me. But looking at the Padres' potential new Cactus League Northwest division, we've got the Brewers, the Padres, the Rangers, the Mariners, and the Royals. And according to Pacoda, which projects the standings at the end of the season and is a very widely used tool among people gambling and whatnot. I don't know if Wade, do you gamble at
all? Here and there.
So none of these teams are projected, even the Padres, by Pagoda to not Pagoda. That's a Chinese spire. Pecota. none of these teams are projected to win even 80 games. I think that's
The
a little
Brewers
strange.
aren't.
No, Brewers are projected to go 79 and 83, and so are the Padres.
So we're winning this division, boys.
Well, the Brewers are pretty good. I'm not worried about the Rangers at all, or the Mariners, or the Royals. The Mariners and the Royals might be two of the worst teams in baseball, along with the Orioles this year. The Rangers, could make a little noise, I guess. They're interesting. They signed a couple of pitchers that I think are going to help them, Lance Lynn especially. And the Brewers obviously have, a couple of the best position players in baseball. Christian Yelich, and I think Keston Hiura is going to be a guy that everybody knows by the end of the season if they don't already. They're interesting.
I mean, if you're looking at it, they got placed in the easiest division by far. Like, no other division comes anywhere close to theirs. And
I think it's got to be Padres, Brewers, and this is health. Assuming everybody stays healthy. Like Tatis has to stay healthy, Paddock has to stay healthy. I imagine in the short season we see Mackenzie Gore at some point.
Yeah, I mean, why not?
If the season's 100 games long,
if this happens, the minor league guys aren't playing. It's only the professional teams. And I think there was something about like expanding the rosters too.
Yeah, they did talk about expanding the rosters. And keep in mind, the minor league guys are still professionals. They all get paid.
Okay. But I mean, yeah, looking at all the other divisions, like Cactus League, Northeast is the Cubs, Giants, Diamondbacks, Rockies, A's. Like Cubs and A's, both really good. Diamondbacks could be solid. Rockies could be solid. Giants, no.
Grapefruit League West, Astros, Mets, Nationals, Cardinals. That's Murderer's Row.
That's a bloodbath.
Jesus. Grapefruit League South, we've got the Twins, the Rays, the Red Sox, the Braves, and the Orioles. There's some talent. The Twins, Rays, Red Sox could all be really, and the Braves could all be maybe not the best teams, but all really good teams.
Right.
Cactus League West, Dodgers, Indians, Angels. Those are all teams on the rise. Actually, everyone in the Cactus League West, Dodgers, Indians, Angels, Reds, White Sox, are all projected to win at least 83 games.
The White Sox are projected to win 83.
Yeah, Luis Roberts coming up. Eloy Jimenez in his second year. Yasmani Grandal, Michael Kopech. Like people like the White Sox a lot.
I don't see it.
So, I mean, looking at all these divisions, I'd say the Padres definitely. I don't know who was in charge of doing this, but they were a Padres fan.
Well, it's all based on where you are within Arizona. And it's like, obviously, we're going to be with the Mariners because we share a facility. Then Brewers, Rangers, Royals are all closest to Peoria.
We talked about that off air. It doesn't make any sense to me because the area where everybody plays is so small anyway. You're not driving more than 30 minutes to the furthest ballpark.
No, like some of those are like an hour away. I mean, and the whole point of this was to make it as limited travel as possible. That's why you're doing this.
And I don't think 5 or 10 minutes matters. I don't think divisions make any sense. And I'm not going to go into it again with you, but if they're just worried about travel in Florida matters a lot because those guys are hours apart, but everybody's close in Phoenix. I think this was a good opportunity. I'm glad they got creative with it, honestly, because I heard on the radio and some other people were talking about how like you want to see the Dodgers and the Giants a lot. And I get that because those are our big rivals. But I think it's kind of fun to see some new teams and get some fresh blood in there. I think this is an exciting time where we can start experimenting with the schedule.
I mean, the Vetter Cup actually matters this year if you go through with it.
It does. And we get to play, I don't know, the Brewers a lot more than we usually do. And the Rangers, it's just teams we don't get to see. Like we're going to see Yelich a lot more. That's fun. Instead of just playing the same teams over and over. It gave us a good opportunity. I'm glad things are getting creative and MLB's trying some stuff.
Love to three-peat for the Vetter Cup and win the Northwest Cactus League this year.
If that happens, we definitely have to print the shirts.
Oh, there's got to be shirts. Speaking of that, what place did we come in the Cactus League this year?
They didn't get to finish it.
I know, but what place were we in?
We're gonna Google that right now
because we might be printing shirts.
The abbreviated Cactus League champion shirts.
Yeah.
We were half game behind the A's again. The fucking A's.
2 years in a row,
and we were in a 5-game losing streak.
The pandemic started one day earlier.
Goddamn pandemic killing us. All right, Wade, you want to do an ad for?
You haven't sent me any.
Do an ad for Bet Online.
While you were waiting this out at home with us, you can still have some fun betting at betonline.ag. With no NBA, NHL, or MLB, you might think there's nothing to bet on, but BetOnline still has hundreds of places to wager, including their online casino with poker and blackjack. And sports aren't totally done. There's still... Yeah, there's nothing on this list anymore. That doesn't make any sense. There's still poker and blackjack.
Of course.
There's still
Any of the casino games, Wade.
And casino games. Their $750,000 poker series. And the elections. You can bet on that. They're still fun to be had, so go to betonline.ag and use the promo code MyPod100. That's MyPod100 to receive your welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, the fun never ends.
Are you going to be betting Trump or Biden?
I'm going to have to go with Trump here.
We all thought Hillary last time. I'm a little worried.
I'm not going to get political on this podcast.
It's not political. It's gambling. All right, let's just get to the interview with Ray Butler. I'm joined now by Ray Butler. He's the founder of Prospects 365. Ray, thank you so much for making some time today and getting away from your quarantine schedule to be on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Now, I wanted to ask you, because I know you don't get this opportunity very often to ask detailed questions. So Prospects 365, do you call it Prospects 365, Prospects 365? What do you call it?
Yeah, Prospects 365.
365, okay. So where did that idea come from? The name. I'm interested in the name for some reason. I don't know why. Is it the idea? I mean, the obvious one is you think about prospects every single day. The prospect community matters every day. Is it the reverse triple play? I'm going deep here. So like the first base, shortstop, third base, triple play. Where did this come from and how did it get started?
Back when I had kind of gotten a little bit of a Twitter following, but it was before I changed the name of our Twitter account to Prospects 365. I kind of reached out I thought it was a massive Twitter following. It was like 100 people maybe. And I kind of said, I'm thinking about launching a blog, a site, but I'm kind of drawing a blank as far as a good name goes. And a couple, or I think, one of my followers kind of threw out Prospects 365. A couple more followers kind of were like, yeah, we really like that. And then I polled my massive 100 Twitter following people, and I kind of said, is Prospects 365 good, or do we want something else? And a large percent of the people who voted, even though it was a really small sample at the time looking back, they wanted Prospects 365. So I went with that name, and our tagline is everything baseball every day of the year, 365 days in a year. So that is kind of the name origin story.
I like it. I love origin stories of any kind. I saw on Twitter you guys just beat The Athletic in popularity. So does that surprise you, or is the Athletic trash?
Oh no, I love The Athletic. I'm an automatic subscriber. It was very, very surprising. And it's a fantasy podcast kind of centered tournament, and we started the Prospects 365 Fantasy Baseball podcast in February, and to kind of already have that following to where we were a 10 seed in this tournament and we beat the Athletic Fantasy Baseball podcast, which was a 2 seed. So it just kind of speaks to the following that the site has kind of accrued over time. And it also speaks to the fact that people are kind of liking the content we're putting out on our podcast.
I was going to ask you about your podcast. So it's called Prospects 365 Fantasy Baseball Podcast. You probably started it at one of the worst times you can imagine for a podcast to start. And I know when the quarantine started, I know a lot of people here on Padres Twitter, which I don't know if you're familiar with Padres Twitter. They're an interesting bunch. We're talking about starting their own podcasts, and I didn't really realize it until a couple weeks ago, but podcast numbers are taking a huge hit during this quarantine.
Yeah, they are. And that we have not been immune to that at all. I think that the podcast tournament that we are a part of right now has kind of helped us out a little bit. I've not really noticed until here recently. We were still kind of having the same number of page views. I was really pleased, content, and excited with the traffic that our site was getting, but our podcast took nearly an immediate hit. We've only published 10 episodes, but when baseball got shut down, there was kind of a pretty immediate dip. And now here lately, we're kind of publishing a little bit less content than we were at the start of the shutdown. So I'm noticing a kind of a dip in traffic as well. Not something that I'm worried about because I know it's going to bounce right back whenever baseball returns, but it is something to kind of keep an eye on right now for sure.
You do a top 200 prospects list, which I like because the top 100 can kind of get stale, at least as a guy like me who checks out a lot of different top 100 rankings. I do fantasy baseball dynasty leagues and stuff, so I'm always looking for lists, and I make my own Padres list of a top 30. But you do top 200 with prospects 365. How are you not doing a top 365 list? Seems like a huge oversight.
Well, if I were a list only and I didn't publish a write-up for each prospect, I would probably do more than 200. But when you're including a write-up that's about 200 words per prospect, it gets pretty time enduring. And especially I send my prospect list to our VIP members through our site on New Year's Day. So that I took, the month of kind of December to compose and write most of our preseason content. And, I wish I had the time to do it all the way up to 365 because the variance, when you get that deep into a list, I know I was listening to this podcast when you had James Anderson on from RotoWire.
Oh, nice.
And he does the top 400, of course. His is list only, but him and I have had the conversation before that, the deeper you go on a prospect list, the more variance there is and the less margin for error. And, there are razor thin margins that separate prospects. That's why in a deeper prospect list, there's so much kind of a disparity and difference in one list compared to the other. So, if maybe a top 365 as far as a prospect list goes is something that I will look into in the future, especially if I find myself with more free time.
Well, this is the time for free time. It's the golden age of free time. And maybe it could be like a special one-time quarantine edition 365. I don't know. Just throwing it out there.
I'm working on a first year player list for this year. And then I think that I am going to release my first ever dynasty rankings. And if 365, that's a kind of a shallow number for a dynasty rankings go. So if that were a larger number, maybe I should make it prospect 720 and make it that, or 730.
I like that. So speaking of the draft, are you a guy that covers the draft pretty intensely? Or are you watching college games during the spring? What's your involvement with the draft like?
Yeah, I coach high school baseball. So at the start of college season, I have very, very little free time. Because the free time that I do have, I either want to spend it at home with my wife, especially because she's pregnant with our first kid, or I'm scouting the Southern League. As high school baseball season winds down, of course, we don't have a season this year. Then I kind of really dive deep into the draft class. I'm lucky enough that I graduated from Mississippi State. They have a really good baseball program year in and year out. I am close enough to Starkville in Mississippi. I'm close enough to Ole Miss and Vanderbilt. I live in West Tennessee. So most of the time I'm able to make it to about a series per season for all three of those schools. And I try and go when I can catch a different SEC opponent for them each time. So I have a pretty good grasp of those types of prospects. I kind of reach out and I get in touch with people who have seen a lot of the prep prospects, whether that's at showcases or their home games, things like that. So by the time the draft rolls around, I have a pretty good database of information on prospects as far as, the advanced analytics go, their TrackMan numbers, things like that. And I'm ready to kind of insert them into the next prospect list that I publish once they get drafted.
So MLB and the Players Association have talked about, the possibility of a shortened draft this year. So as few as possibly 5 rounds. They're talking about deferred money for the next couple of years and maybe even a shorter draft the following year. And with high school baseball canceled and college players losing a season of eligibility, or maybe not eligibility, they're talking about, keeping guys around for an extra year, but that might not be an option for a lot of guys. So how is this affecting you in terms of, getting out and making your rankings, evaluating players just for your own personal use? What are scouts like you and other people doing to handle all these delays and possibly cancellations?
Yeah, the good news is that a whole lot of, or most organizations had just about everything they needed from a huge portion of the draft class. I think from everyone I've talked to that this is really going to push college kids up some as far as the way they're prioritized in the draft, because there is more concrete information on them than on the high school class. Everyone I've reached out to, I'm wanting information on certain prospects, but all that, kind of your college people and some of the org people I've talked to, all they really want to talk about is how much, we just witnessed the NCAA is going to allow this senior class from this season to have one more year of eligibility. And some of that is going to depend on the program and things like that. Scholarship numbers next year are going to be drastically impacted. You're going to have a new freshman class coming in, but you're going to have the same senior class, at least a huge portion of that same senior class. And I've mentioned on another podcast here recently, you're going to see that a lot of freshmen who were kind of projected to be an everyday player at the college level next season, now it might not be until maybe 2022 before we really get our first concrete statistical data from their college experience. So that's going to affect future draft classes and future evaluations. For now, I'm just trying to kind of close the gap on prep knowledge, because that is kind of the black hole that we have to kind of connect the dots on now. You can watch a highlight video of a Zach Veen and a Austin Hendrick, things like that, your really popular prep prospects. But I want to know people kind of like this year's version of a JJ Goss or Jimmy Lewis, people who are not necessarily elite high school prospects that we have less information on now, thanks to a canceled high school baseball season.
So among the first rounders who are projected to be first rounders, at least prep players, do you think this delay or, potentially missing out the whole year, do you think there's a chance that more of them go to college, or they take their chances and just, go straight to the draft?
I think a lot of your tweener type prospects will, a high school kid that was kind of going to be on the teeter-tot as far as organizations offering them enough money to sway them to sign with their organization compared to going to college. I think those kids are more likely now to go to college, just because I think organizations, when they're faced with, do I choose this prep kid who we really like but we don't have as much data on, or do I go with this college kid who has a lower ceiling but we know so much more about the profile and things like that? I think you'll see organizations this summer in the draft side towards that college player.
Are there any players at the top of the draft you think really benefiting from this, and likewise, are there any that are being hurt a lot by it, at least in the maybe top 20 picks?
Austin Hendrick as a prep player is someone who kind of comes to mind, but not for the right reason. I think that there are people who have seen him play and have scouted him in person extensively who have some real concerns about the hit tool. And I'm not sure what I'm talking about is going to manifest itself in the draft, just because I think organizations had probably already formed their opinion on his hit tool prior to the shutdown. But I think in the fantasy world, I do think that I've seen some really, really bullish and aggressive takes on Austin Hendrick. He's a guy for me that I've got some fairly legitimate concerns with the hit tool, but now we don't get to see him for the months leading up to the draft. So if you were really bullish and aggressive on Hendrick, you're probably going to remain that way. And there's also the people who already kind of have that growing impression that, there's obviously massive bat speed and massive raw power there, but will he be able to get to it if he doesn't make enough contact?
All right, taking a quick break to talk about Simply Safe. With home security, there's two ways you can go about protecting your home. You can wait weeks for a technician to do a messy install that costs a fortune, or you can get Simply Safe, the two-time winner of CNET's Editor's Choice Awards. Go to simplysafe.com/team today. You'll get free shipping and a 60-day risk-free trial. 2 months. That's almost the whole pandemic. We'll be done. Free trial during the pandemic. You've got nothing to lose here. Go now and be sure to go to simplysafe.com/team. That's simplysafe.com/team from Simply Safe and all of us here wishing you guys safety and good health. All right, back to the interview with Ray Butler. If you're, let's say, the baseball czar for MLB, what would you do with this season? I know there's a lot of unknowns and lots of variables, and we kind of have to wait and see, but at the same time, you want to be prepared and think outside the box and try to schedule things out in advance, maybe multiple plans being juggled at once, depending on what happens. They're talking about realignment of the divisions, playing all their games in the spring training sites in Arizona and Florida with as early as a late May start time for baseball with a condensed schedule. What are your thoughts of all these ideas being floated around, and what would you maybe do differently?
Oh, it's a mess. I'm a fan of the way that it seems like Major League Baseball is going to do absolutely everything they can for there to be a season. I do think that realigning the divisions and having everyone, all 30 teams kind of isolated in the same place, playing a really condensed schedule in the same complex, on the same fields every day. I kind of side with the masses. I don't really think that is logical. I wish that it was, but it just doesn't really seem like something that the players are going to be able to get behind. I've seen a couple who say, sure, anything to play, but then you have a massive amount of players who say, I don't really want to be separated from my family during this time for 4 months, just to kind of make it more convenient for Major League Baseball. I do think, I told someone this last night, I'm a really pessimistic person, but I'm really optimistic about the chances that we play this year. Right now I set it at 65-35 that we do. I think that you're going to see, in my opinion, I think we're going to see games in major league stadiums. I don't think it is until probably mid-July. I think the schedule is very condensed. I'm not sure that there are going to be fans at any of the regular season games, at least to start. But I do remain fairly optimistic that there is going to be some sort of MLB season this year.
You published something on your website recently, and you kind of called yourself out on it on a Twitter post, saying you were kind of just throwing some names out to see to help yourself with the rankings. So you said every prospect who has the top prospect overall potential list, and I love lists like this. Let's say you don't get Wander Franco, Julio Rodriguez, Jared Kelenic, or Christian Robinson. Who would you say are your next top 3 picks for a new dynasty league starting up this year?
Okay, so wait, who do I not get to choose from?
You don't get Wander Franco. You don't get Julio Rodriguez, Jared Kelenic, or Christian Robinson.
This is a startup in a dynasty league?
Yep. And you're only picking prospects.
Jo Adell, Luis Robert. In this, was Jason Dominguez in that group?
No, you can have him.
Dominguez, like a Marco Luciano, that type of prospect. Even a Royce Lewis too.
Okay. Who out of that group you like Jo Adell 1 there?
Yeah, if I can't have Wander Franco, I have Jo Adell ranked 2nd overall.
What do you like about Jo Adell maybe more than Luis Robert or Julio Rodriguez? They're all pretty close for me.
Yeah, I've got Adell 2, Rodriguez 3, and I think I've got Robert 5th. I was lucky enough to get to scout Robert 3 times in person last year. I've got some concerns that he has an affinity to swing at just about everything, and his hand-eye coordination is so elite that he may not have a massive strikeout rate even at the big league level, but he is going to hit a lot of pitchers' pitches. He's going to be way early on sliders outside, and he's going to roll over and ground out to shortstop. He's going to hit a slow roller to third, things like that. Obviously, the raw tools are massive. I got to see it firsthand in a couple of batting practices last year. He's a plus defender in center field. Of course, he's a plus runner and a really good base runner as well. So he is going to hit for power. He is going to be a factor on the base paths, just thinking from a fantasy standpoint. But I wonder if he's ever going to be able to fully get to those massive tools if he doesn't cut down on his aggression. And seeing him a couple of times in the Southern League last season, seeing him at the Futures game in Cleveland, I'm just really skeptical of how long it's going to take him to be willing to lay off that slider outside, to be able to not hunt a first pitch fastball if it's out of the zone, things like that. Joe Adell is going to be a fairly slow burn as well at the big league level when he gets promoted. I just don't think that it is going to be quite as slow of a burn as it is going to be with Robert. And Adell has more raw power for me than Luis Robert does.
On that list of players with number one potential, you also mentioned my guy, CJ Abrams. What do you see him turning into? And do you think does it matter even if he's a second baseman, a center fielder, or a shortstop for you?
Not for me. I kind of see him sticking in center field. The comp that I always throw out there, or that I have been throwing out with Abrams, I put it on my 2020 prospect list, and I also tweeted this here recently. When Trey Turner got called up to the Nationals in 2016, he started in center field. There was kind of a positional bind on that team, so they just kind of threw him in center field and let him go. He exploded offensively. He went buku, home runs. He stole bases. He was adequate in center field defensively. I've kind of said that I think that can be Abrams' career. I think Turner's weighted runs created plus that season was 146. Of course, we can't expect that year in and year out from Abrams, but I think having that kind of impact, fantasy impact, I believe that he's going to develop the game power. He's already developed the raw power. Of course, his speed is elite. I don't think he's going to dethrone Fernando Tatis Jr. out of shortstop in San Diego, but I do think he fits long-term in center field. I think he will be average or better defensively. I'm really high. He's going to be a really, really, really good player.
Are you thinking, more power than like a Juan Pierre? Are you thinking like a Kenny Lofton or someone similar to that maybe?
Oh, no, I think we'll see him hit 20 home run seasons at the big league level. I'm bullish. I think, he projects well physically. I think he's going to add weight, and it's going to be the kind of weight that even if he finalizes as a 70 runner instead of an 80 runner, it's not really going to have too much of an impact for him on the bases. I think he's always going to be a factor there. And, a lot of it depends on the offensive environment at the big league level when he debuts. If it's still offensive friendly, I definitely think that this is a bat that's going to be capable of kind of your at peak 20 home runs for sure.
Love hearing that. Nice. You love Hudson Head too, don't you? Can you wax poetic on him for a minute?
Yeah, Hudson Head was someone who I really considered putting on that list of potential number one overall prospects. I just kind of, if you're not super elite in one category, and I don't think Hudson Head is ever going to be that prospect that is a 70 or an 80 in any one category, I do think that there is a non-zero chance that he ends up with a plus hit tool, plus raw power, and plus speed. Even that, I'm not sure he's going to be the number one overall prospect in baseball, but I do think he can ascend maybe into the top 10. He has a long way to go to get there. Some people who watched him in the Arizona League were fairly impressed, but they were kind of skeptical on just how high the ceiling is. He's a really good player. The Padres wouldn't have signed him for so much overslot if he wasn't. Just someone to definitely watch. I kind of ranked him fairly conservatively, as I do for most prep hitters in their first professional season. Depending on what kind of minor league season we see this year, he's someone who could really rise up a long way. I think the exact same thing about a Reggie Preciado.
Nice. Preciado has been a name that is popping up more and more among, just casual prospect evaluators even. And he seems to be moving up. You talk about draft helium guys. Preciado in the prospect community is a helium prospect.
Yeah, he is. One of my favorite and one of my main contacts who scouts the Arizona League, and they were also around for Instructs. Maximo Acosta for the Rangers has just about as much hype as any prospect in baseball right now. And that contact was adamant that he would put Preciado over Acosta from a future projection standpoint, just because of the body. I'm not completely sold on the bat speed, but he's all legs is, what I've been told several times, just kind of by looking at him. Smooth defender at shortstop. If he has to move away from shortstop, it's going to be to third, and he's only going to have to move if he's kind of filled out physically to where perhaps he gets to that plus raw power that a lot of people see when they look at the frame. So that's not the worst thing. You either maybe he's an average or above average power from shortstop with very little speed output, or, perhaps he potentially moves to third base defensively, but it's because he's kind of grown into that plus or better raw power.
Another dynasty hypothetical for you. So you're starting a new dynasty league. You get the top 5 prospects as a group from any organization you want. So you get the first pick. So to pick a group of prospects, which top 5 from which organization are you taking?
Ooh, well, it's either the Padres or the Rays. I had Mackenzie Gore third on my list. I remain one of the only people in the industry who are super high on Taylor Trammell. I have him as a top 25 guy, if memory serves me correct. So I'm higher on those two guys than most places. Of course, I've got Wander Franco 1. But I would probably, if I'm only taking the top 5, I think I would like kind of the star power of the Padres. If memory serves me correctly, I'd have to look at that a little bit more.
Okay, so the Padres have more star power for you because Franco at 1. There's a little bit of a drop off there, and you have Trammell higher than most. I have to say that Trammell wouldn't be that high for me if I did a top 100. I don't know. Trammell, I'm a Padres guy, obviously, but Trammell just worries me a little bit because stringing 2 bad years together in a row. I know he came on strong at the end of last year, and maybe the Padres can unlearn some of the things that he did for him, for the Reds did to him in his swing. But I don't know. He worries me a little bit. The athlete that kind of split his time in high school and has shown a lot of good tools, but hasn't really put it together yet.
Yeah, I definitely agree that we have not seen him at his best yet. But I mean, and I'm not criticizing you whatsoever, but you're saying 2 bad years. In 2018, in the Florida State League, he had a weighted runs created plus of right at 130. Of course, even for me, he didn't have the power output that I hoped he would. I think the FSL kind of suppressed that a little bit to a point, but having scouted him a ton in person last year before he was traded with the Reds, the swing was not pretty to look at whatsoever. His upper body really didn't agree with his lower body. Half of him was trying to elevate the ball. The other was trying to hit line drives into the gaps. And the stats kind of showed that. He was barely above average before he got traded. The Padres really immediately started tinkering with him mechanically. It didn't fully pop until the Texas League playoffs. He was phenomenal throughout those playoffs, and I'm hopeful that he kind of carries that over into this season whenever it starts. I would expect him to probably debut in the Pacific Coast League if we have a minor league season. And next spring, he'll kind of be knocking on the door of the Padres trying to figure out how they're going to fit him into their everyday lineup.
Well, I definitely like you talking me back into him a bit. You're definitely free to tell me I'm wrong about anybody and convince me to be more in on a guy. So I'll allow that.
At the end of the day, I'm a sucker for people who have elite batting eyes. He is going to be someone who, even if he doesn't hit for the average that his speed says that he should, he's going to have a double-digit walk rate. So he's going to be super valuable in on-base percentage leagues. He still has that 70 grade speed. He's going to be a factor on the base pass. Now it's all about, can he be the 270 hitter who gets to 20 home runs? Because if he gets to 20 home runs, it's going to be something like 270, 20, 20. And that's a super valuable prospect, even if he ends up in left field defensively.
Taking another quick break here to talk about LinkedIn. The perfect hire can have an impact on your business for years to come. And the only place to find the perfect hire is on LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn has over 675 million members worldwide. LinkedIn Jobs screens candidates with the hard and soft skills you're looking for so you can hire the right person fast. LinkedIn also looks beyond the work skills and puts your job post in front of qualified candidates who match your business requirements perfectly. It's no wonder a person is hired every 8 seconds on LinkedIn, and why companies rated LinkedIn Jobs the #1 hiring platform for delivering quality hires. Find the right person for your business today with LinkedIn Jobs. You can pay what you want and get the first $50 free. Just visit linkedin.com/team. Again, that's linkedin.com/team to get $50 off your first job post. Terms and conditions apply. All right, back to Ray Butler. Any of this love coming from the fact that he's a Georgia kid?
I named him prior to 2018. I named him my breakout prospect. I wrote an entire article. I thought he was really, yeah, he was real. I thought he was really going to pop in the FSL in 2018. He didn't. The power output wasn't enough for him to be that breakout prospect that I kind of anticipated. But having had Division I football scholarships and being a two-way player, I remember. I'm a pretty big football nut, or at least I used to be. I remember kind of his football recruiting story, and then he ended up inking with the Reds. So it's just a story I followed for a long, long time. I openly admit that I am biased towards Taylor Trammell. He's just someone who I fully believe in, and if I have to die on a hill, then I'll die on it.
That's fair. I have lots of hills that I die on frequently. I was on the Luis Arias Hill, called it Luis Arias Island, and I died out there a while ago, but so I understand.
But Trent Grisham is going to be a beast, so I think y'all are going to win that trade.
Okay, I hope you're right. He's got a lot to prove to me, though. I feel like a lot of people were just all in on him kind of without any reason behind it other than they just trust AJ Preller and whatever he does. But Grisham's got to earn my love. I haven't seen that.
I understand.
You're a big Braves fan, obviously.
No, I'm a Cardinals fan.
Are you? I thought I read on your Twitter you were a Braves guy.
No, I'm a Cardinals guy. My wife is a gigantic Braves fan, but I'm a Cardinals guy. Sadly.
Well, then that means you're a Braves fan too.
Yes, no doubt. We watch more Braves baseball than Cardinals baseball in our house for sure.
All right. I'm offering you Tatis Jr. for Acuna Jr. straight up. What do you do to me?
I want Acuna Jr. all day, every day.
I'll add Ryan Weathers.
I want Acuna all day, every day. Ryan Weathers is a 4 or a 5 at the big league level.
All right. Instead of Weathers, I'll give you Taylor Trammell.
I'll take the pair. I think I've got a cornerstone shortstop who's going to be adequate defensively. Even if he regresses offensively, I still think he's going to be an above average hitter at one of the most premium defensive positions in baseball. And then I truly think Trammell is going to be an everyday left fielder at the big league level. Of course, that means that the real life floor is going to be low. But like I said, I think he can be at minimum, I think he's going to be a 260, 15 home run, 20 stolen base guy. And even in left field, that's going to be valuable for a big league team.
So what'd you say you were going to take? You're going to take my offer?
I'll take your offer if it's Fernando Tatis Jr. and Trammell for Acuna.
That's definitely a hefty price tag. I don't think I would do that. I just wanted to see what the price was going to be for you. We love Tatis here. He's already a fan. He's going to be one of the most popular Padres of all time if he stays healthy. Yeah,
it's crazy that, I've always been extremely critical of the Eric Hosmer deal. It never made sense to me.
Preaching to the choir.
Then you pay Manny Machado a whole lot of money, kind of thinking that, it's Machado who's going to become the face of your franchise. And I do think that Machado is going to positively regress some this season. But, if you would have told me, even if Tatis broke camp with the Padres last season, that he would take off and kind of just take on this mystique and this persona that he did, it was amazing to witness as someone who, kind of cut their teeth as Tatis was kind of climbing through the ranks after he was traded to San Diego. It was awesome to watch. Him and Paddock were one of my favorite stories of the big league season last year.
The same thing kind of happened with Acuna and Soto. All the top prospects arrived sooner than we thought they would. Soto because of injury and need. Acuna, I don't know how Acuna got. It seemed like 1 minute he was a good prospect, and then he was the number one at the end of the year. And then the next thing I knew, he was at the majors. Like, it was a whirlwind for me. Is that just like the new norm with these young top prospects?
Ronald Acuna Jr. was my first ever prospect love. He was the prospect who kind of earned me my original Twitter following. I would tweet out his nightly stats starting in 2017 when he debuted in High A Kissimmee. I tweeted out his nightly box score. Then he got promoted to Double A, the Mississippi Braves in the Southern League. I kept tweeting out his daily stat lines. I got to watch him in person because I live close to the Jackson Generals, who are in the Southern League. Then he ended the year in AAA Gwinnett. And this was all after I had said on my very first ever prospect list that he was the hidden gem and the biggest secret in the minor leagues. So him kind of popping the way that he did, it kind of earned me my first legitimate Twitter following. And kind of the rest is history. But, to really answer your question, I think a lot of it is going to be about the type of prospect it is, especially offensively. the Nationals felt more confident than a lot of people in the public did about Juan Soto because he has that elite plate discipline. You're not going to have to worry about him swinging at anything and everything at the big league level. Ronald Acuna Jr. was a little bit more aggressive, but he just has such raw skills and 80 grade hand-eye coordination that it doesn't even matter the fact that he's probably a little bit more aggressive than he could be. And now he's beginning to take walks. And I do think, like I said, I do think Fernando Tatis Jr. is going to come back to earth a little bit. He's still going to be an above average hitter and offensive player. But, you know, I think we would have seen that last year had he not gotten hurt. Now I think we're going to see that this summer a little bit. But, of course, the sky is still the limit. He's a perennial all-star. And in my opinion, he's going to end up making a really good case as a Hall of Fame player before it's all said and done.
In my dynasty league that I've been playing in for, the better part of a decade now, it's 12 teams. You do 50 minor leaguers per team. And I had a chance to get Juan Soto and I had a chance to get Fernando Tatis Jr. before they exploded, but didn't want to overpay for them. And I've been kicking myself ever since. Is there someone right now that is going to be one of these type of prospects where Ryan, go overpay for this guy right now? It's worth it in the long term.
It all depends on the type of trade that you've been given. The first player that comes to my mind is Noelvi Marte for the Mariners. I think that he is a very, very small stateside sample away from being a top 20 guy, consensus across the board in the prospect world, maybe even a top 10. But right now you can get him at the price of a top 40, top 50 style prospect. So he's definitely someone I'm trying to dig in on and kind of attempting to take advantage of perhaps the last few months that he's not an elite prospect across the board.
I will get on that right away. I know my league mates have nothing else going on right now, so maybe I'll float some trades out and see what happens.
Boom.
We will get you out of here on this. I need a TV show or movie recommendation from you. What have you been watching during your time at home?
My wife is a gigantic Marvel fan, so we have been going through those movies in chronological order. I know that's not like a hidden gem. That's not a recommendation because everyone knows about the Marvel movies, but from a movie standpoint, that's what we've been watching. I have, of course, we watched Tiger King. I wasn't in love with it like everyone else was. I think it was just kind of a bunch of noise.
I was overrated too.
Yeah. I have watched all of season 1 of Ozark. I'm currently in season 2. And I absolutely love that show. So if you haven't watched that show yet, definitely put it in your queue and make that your next plan for your streaming binges that we are all kind of going through right now.
Sounds good to me. I have not watched Ozark. I know a lot of people that have, and I was kind of just, worn out on drug shows for a while. It seemed like that's all there was. And now that maybe I've given Ozark a couple years to simmer, maybe I'll jump back into Ozark now. Yeah.
The comparison that I've been telling my friends is kind of, it's like the redneck version of Breaking Bad, but in a good way. So I definitely enjoy it. It's been what I've watched in between articles, in between podcasts. That's what I'm watching for sure. And playing MLB The Show.
Man, I need to get on MLB The Show. I've never had a PlayStation, so I've never played the show. And all I've been hearing is MLB The Show this, MLB The Show that.
Yeah, I think it's kind of grown a little bit right now because everyone's home, so everyone's playing. So it's kind of more popular now than ever for sure.
Yeah, it's getting Fernando Tatis Jr. a lot of popularity on Twitter right now. Everyone's finally discovered his personality.
Yes, baseball needs more. Baseball needs like 10 Fernando Tatis Jr.'s. That's the type of personality that's going to grow the game, especially with young people. We need as much of that as we can possibly get.
Absolutely agree. All right, Ray, thank you so much for the time. I know it kept you a little longer than we talked about. Follow him at Coach Ray Butler and check out Prospects 365 Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Read all the content at prospects365.com. Are you writing anything this week?
I am working on prospects to watch in the Southern League. That'll be out later this week. Then, of course, like I said, I'm going to dive into my first-year player list and then hopefully dynasty rankings if we don't have baseball back before then.
Sounds good. All right, Ray, thanks again. Stay safe out there. And hopefully when there's some real baseball and some actual fantasy stuff to talk about, we can get you on again.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks again to Ray Butler. Please follow him on Twitter. Check out all of his content on prospects365.com. Wade, you know about True Classic Tees. Style is changing. Formal wear is out. The t-shirt is in. True Classic Tees are my favorite. They're a t-shirt company based in LA, and they are on the rise. They're soft. They hold up in the wash. They're incredibly versatile. You wear them out, wear them to work, around the house, the podcast studio. Wade, you went on a walk today. You can wear it on those. Best part, they are incredibly cheap, only $15. You can get them for even less. Go to trueclassictees.com. Use the code at checkout BELIEVE for 20% off. That's BELIEVE, BLEAV, at trueclassictees.com. All right, Wade, before we get out of here, Wade's Film Room. Are you watching anything new, interesting?
I watched your movie that you recommended last week, The Platform.
Yeah, what was your overall thought on that? I can't tell if you liked it or not.
Pretty fucked up movie.
Yeah, right?
The dub over, and then I also always have the captions at the bottom. I'm a big read TV guy.
Yeah, so why'd you have the dub on?
It's just how it came. I didn't know you could switch it.
I don't even have Netflix. I just signed up for the free trial and I figured out how to do it. How come you can't?
I don't know, but the dub over and the reading at the bottom not matching up really messed with me.
Jesus. Great start. So that really helps your enjoyment of it. But
obviously,
other than that, you liked it?
Obviously.
Okay.
But don't say his word.
Obvio. They call it. He says obvio in the movie because he's speaking Spanish.
Gotcha. I had just had some dub over guy saying obviously the whole time.
The voice they got for that guy was actually pretty good. The English guy.
Yeah.
I thought it was.
The ending. I don't know. I would have gone a different way.
But endings are really tough. I don't know how you do a movie like that.
But you know.
Yeah. Anyway, this guy's he volunteers to go to this weird prison, and it's all about his survival and interacting with he wants to read and quit smoking.
Yeah, Don Quixote and stop smoking.
So Spanish of him. I've got a movie for you. I watched this actually last year, but I rewatched it again recently, and it's not on Netflix, but it's called Upgrade. Have you heard of it?
No.
Upgrade is about this guy that gets in this serious accident, and he loses the ability to walk, to feed himself, the whole thing. He's paralyzed. So he gets this computer chip, this sophisticated AI, experimental AI computer chip implanted into his brain to help him walk, and it works. And then stuff starts to go really weird, and you realize the AI is so smart, it's has its own kind of agenda that he didn't realize was going to be in here. And he can talk with it in his head. So it's like another person that exists in his head, and it can control his actions at points. It gets really fucking crazy. It's another sci-fi kind of action thriller movie that I think really interesting, kind of with twists mixed in throughout and at the end. Recommend that if you can find it somewhere.
All right. Another one I watched on Netflix was Molly's Game. Have you seen that one?
No, I mean, I'm Netflix virgin, I guess, still.
So it just came out on Netflix, but it was a movie in theaters last year about a professional skier that kind of lost her skiing career and then started some big celebrity poker games in LA and New York.
Well, I didn't expect that. That was a lot of different things coming at me at once. Okay. I'll check it out.
It's based on a true story.
Okay.
It's Jeremy Bloom, if you remember him, Eagles wide receiver, played at Boulder. It's his sister, based on a true story.
I do not recall that name, but I will check that out.
Amazing punt returner at Boulder. I remember that.
Punt returner. Okay. If that's it, thank you guys for listening. Please follow the show's Twitter account at Friar Farmhands. And if you enjoy the show, subscribe. We're on all your favorite platforms, whatever you're listening to on this, obviously. And everywhere else you download podcasts. We're everywhere.
Obvio.
Yeah. Take us home, Wade.
You can also find us at Believe.com and at Believe Podcasts. Please leave your comments, questions, concerns, and your rating of the show on all platforms.
You've been listening to Believe in Padres Prospects on the Believe Podcast Network. What? San Diego's #1 sports podcast network. I'm Ryan. That was Wade missing his line. We'll talk to you guys again next week. We're bringing in special guest Tommy Morris to do another podcast. So see you guys then.
Peace out.
toward your destination, though you may find from time to time.
She's getting repped.
I'm doing less activity and drinking much more since this tournament started.
I do kind of want to drink tonight. I